my family other than the mother of my first son. So she found Barry, and he was kind enough to give us an offer that we could take and for treating me. And that's when I did Ibogaine for the first time in 2009. And it was, I mean, I couldn't believe it. You know, after so many processes of detox and rehab, there was nothing that had put me in that place, you know, of reconnection to myself, of like my brain working in a different way, um, feeling that I was connected to life again after so many years of shooting up, you know. So it was really amazing for me. I mean, at the time, I was not ready to really make a transformation in my life. So even though the treatment was really incredible and effective in terms of not having any withdrawals, and the experience was really hard. I went through a period of super intense pain of many hours, and there was still not a good understanding of the protocols that needed to be used. Dosages were super high, um, administered in a very short period. And I was also using buprenorphine, which made it really difficult at the time. But in the end, that when I was able to walk, I couldn't believe how I was feeling. I remember seeing my son shining and started crying, and finally I felt like all these energetic channels in my body were open, and it was hard to sustain in a way, you know, to have that reconnection so fast and so intense. um, and I can say at that point I was not ready to make a change, a transformation in my life. You know, I went back to my house after treatment, not a good understanding of the support I was going to need. Um, Really, with a terrible situation with my family, so I didn't have much support there. Um, and I went back into this in a very open state, energetically, emotionally, and of course, because I didn't plan anything on what my next steps were going to be, I relapsed really fast that first time. It took me years to understand that I needed to have many things aligned for the process, that it was not just a matter of being able to stop using a substance, you know? Um, and I feel like the Ibogaine gifts for me have been much more than just a detox, like no other detox. It's given me much, much more, you know. But it took me a while to understand that it was not just about a substance, and I could keep on with my life. And so I did many, many detox processes, or addiction interruption, how a lot of people like to call it, which is not my favorite term. But and then from there, after years, I was really tired. You know, I was with a lot of problems in my life, of course, from emotional to legal, and a mess. Of course, I almost died a few times, and it was bad. But I finally got to a point where I was willing to do whatever I needed to do, you know, and then I started using this medicine uh, in a more, I would say, maybe complete way, with good support, therapeutic support. Um, I got involved in groups in AA and NA. My relationship started changing with my family. And at some point, I was able to really start working on transforming myself, my situation, and now I'm working here at Iboga Quest uh, as a provider with Barry and an amazing team of people, all dedicated to this beautiful process, this amazing medicine, all with our own paths of um, self work and our commitment to this beautiful spirits.
Um, Felipe, before moving on to Iboga Quest, can you share a little bit about your actual Ibogaine experience? Like, what happened during the active phase? How did it help you to heal your addiction other than the interruption? Because you said you don't like to use the word interruption because it's more than just an interruption, correct?
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I didn't know all the chemical process that happened. I still don't understand most of it. But I mean, the part where it stops the withdrawals, right? And as soon as you feel better and you go over, for me, it was like a 48-hour period of a very intense experience with a lot of pain, of course, because it was still trying to work with all the buprenorphine there. And it was crazy. I mean, nowadays, nobody, well, some people work like that, treating someone directly off of buprenorphine. But the thing for me, it was like, yes, it gives you these reconnection, and it enhances the transporters of dopamine and serotonin, and that's amazing. You feel reconnected. But I guess more than going into details about my experiences, Ibogaine has helped me in it has so many gifts. It's not just the detox, which is one of the things that now people are only, sometimes they are only looking for the detox and stay away from the substance. And it gives you so much more. It can give you so much more. And for me, it was my work with this medicine and my life has been what the plant has given me is more. I can talk about the grief of my mother's death. You know, that was something that I was stuck there for 14 years, and then the medicine just helped me tremendously, like jump the fence. Of course, with a lot of therapeutic support and a community and all these pieces that need to be there. And then, for example, the forgiveness to my father, who at that time I hated. I loved him, but I also hated him. And this has have been gifts that have been given to me by this medicine in different stages of my life. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want me to go into the details of these experiences.
Yeah, we have time.
Well, for example, the work of my mother killed herself, when I was 20 years old. And when I started doing real work with the medicine, I told myself, well, if you really want to have a relationship with this spirit or spirits, really need to get to know it really well and try to understand it. So I started doing Ibogaine periodically. I also did Iboga, I did TA, PTA, and the experiences. I'll explain the one about the grief of my mother. And I had this idea of my mother that she was in a very dark place, because she killed herself, and all these beliefs that I had. And the Ibogaine in the first experiences started showing me very very confrontative things. Like it showed me, for example, the moments previous to where she killed herself. And in the beginning, I couldn't understand why. It was a very powerful image, but for those who have tried this medicine, when you go through this process in the medicine, it's like you're watching it from a distance in a way. Um, you are living it and processing it, of course, but it's like you're not. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like if you're watching it from a distance. And when it showed me this, I was troubled. What is this trying to tell me? Why is it showing me this? Because the energetic impact of it was really strong. and I didn't know what to make of it in the beginning. And then little by little, with time, days, um, it started sinking in, and I started seeing, of course, with the help of my therapist and the people that helped me through that process, that it was showing me all these the loyalty I had towards her, the image I had to make about her, uh, having to do that because the world was uh, treating her really badly. So making like justifying the process in a way, the fact that she killed herself. And in a way, it started showing me and throwing things to my experience that were super confrontative. And it was, I was confronted with this idea of, oh no, it's my mom. She did, and then it threw me to a place where I had to feel all that it all the pain, all that it really hurt. And then I had to put my mother into a place where, well, yes, I love you. I understand you had a difficult situation, but it was also very painful for me. And I don't feel it was fair. And I felt abandoned and all this fear. And so it took me to a place where I could feel all this other side instead of justifying and protecting my mother in a way. It brought me to reality of the fact that I was feeling abandoned, and that started giving me a lot of material to work. And then I did another experience that also brought a lot of material, very heavy. And then the third time I did the experience working with this specific subject that it brought, the medicine brought. I could have intentions for my experience, and sometimes I don't get anything about my intention. Um, Except some things I will explain in a little while. But in the third experience, I was able to, when the acute part was done, I went out to the garden and I had a vision of my mother. And then my mother came to me and I wanted to hug her. So I hugged her for the first time in many, many years that I see my mother in a vision that is not dark and troubled. Um, when I when we hug, I want to see her face, no, close to me. It's the first time I'm feeling her in a long time. And then when I try to see her face, I see she's blurry. And then she starts coming into my body. And then it gives me this understanding that my mother is with me. And these crazy things that happen with the medicine, that put me in a totally different place than what I had been going through in all this grief process with my mother that was super, super long. So that for me was huge, in terms of also my recovery from drugs, all this pain, all this wanting to, yeah, to keep the pain away and just accepting and realizing that my mother still lives with me, you know. So that was, for me, that was one of the great gifts that this medicine has given me. Um, and I can talk about another fundamental one that was the forgiveness to my father, because my relationship with my father was very, I hated him because he never supported me when I was a kid. He was never there. He never supported my mother. We lived in a different state. He was the one to blame. My mother also was blaming him all the time. So I kind of absorbed this, and I hated him at some point. Of course, I also loved him, but I hated him at some point. And with one experience of Ibogaine, I had this image. I started working with fear. The intention was to work with my fear in that experience with my therapist, and I saw this vision of myself as a kid, like 6, 7, 8 years old, in a room, in a position like on the floor, like on my knees, with my hands like this, like asking for something, you know. And on the other side of the room, a long room, is my father just walking from side to side. And I could see like all these because I wanted to work with my anxiety and my fear, and I couldn't relate that at the moment. And then my father just looks at me and comes directly to me and gets close, and then he kissed me in the forehead, right? But that created such a, I don't know, I don't know what happened. I mean, it was an energetic blast, and I just understood that I had been looking for this, for my father to see me, for my father to acknowledge me, for my father to love me, you know. And there was a huge thing about my addiction that I went really hard into my addiction because it was the only way I could get his attention.
Mm.
So a big part of the way I used, which was incredibly destructive, had to do with calling his attention, for him to be there with me. And then I started this process of forgiveness for myself and for my father. You know, this can seem kind of abstract, but I mean, it's the way the medicine works sometimes, you know? And so that gave me such an understanding of where my father was coming from, you know, all his history, all these relationship that had been um, yeah, filtered by this anger, and it like opened up my heart, and I understood I loved my father and I was looking for him in these ways, very destructive ways. And like my relationship with my, right after that experience, I went to see my father and we talked and I explained him, and we started connecting from a very different place. So I could say those two are huge, and it's given me so many other gifts, as I like to call them, you know. But those two have been super powerful. That's why I know about the power of this medicine, and I am super grateful to be involved in this world. Mm,
Those are foundational relationships. So if you heal those, that really changes your foundation, you know,
mm.
of who you are as a person. So yeah, I have experienced that those kind of healings also with ayahuasca and ibogaine, the parent-child relationships, you know. So
Mm.
yeah, so important. So then, how did you come to then be working with Iboga Quest? Yeah, how did that evolve? Because were you, yeah, interested in knowing how that evolves and what you do there now?
Well, when I did my first experience with Barry, um, there was a connection there, and I also was probably one of the, maybe the only or one of the few junkies in town of heroin, and so I could really value the experience in a way that not everyone can. And Barry and I connected at a very deep level, and Barry was the first person that fully trusted me and gave me confidence and invited me to work right after the treatment. He told me, "Hey, listen, you want to start working with me?" And he shared everything with me. He's been a father figure, a brother, a friend, a mentor, and from the beginning, he invited me to work there. And at those in that time, it was a very different process than what we have right now. Like very different. It was more about Barry wanting to share this experience and the connection he had with the spirit and the lineage he had with the lineage connection with Howard Lotsof and Rocky Carabelli and all these amazing figures that he had been related with. He is related with in a way. Um, but then, you know, I relapsed and relapsed, and it took me a while to get to a point where I felt stable. This is 10 years ago where I really felt like I came back to myself. And then Barry, I mean, when I relapsed, I just went step away from Iboga Quest and Barry because I went to live somewhere else, and the story was complicated. Is complicated. But then 10 years ago, he knew I had been doing also Ibogaine with Narina Waltz. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was a provider, also amazing woman. And I had been doing also processes of detox with her. Um, and then he found out I was clean. And he contacted me and he told me, okay, I think you're ready. Why don't you come and start working seriously with this? Um, and in the beginning, I said, I don't know if I want to work with this. The processes are super intense. How about all the medical supervision? Like, I mean, the process I did with you was amazing, but it was scary in a way. Um, and then it didn't take me long to tell him, okay, yes, I'm ready for this and I want to work with you. And then with time, we started building this. I mean, he taught me most of the things he knows. He welcomed me, and then we started working with with this project and seeing how we could improve it, and brought more therapeutic aspects to it and better medical support. And then with the years, we've come up with a project that is really something I'm really proud of. Um, so yeah,
You mean a pro when you say project, you mean a protocol, or like how you do the ibogaine treatment? That's what you're when you say project.
the project I mean Iboga Quest. There is not just one protocol. The how we see it is we need to adapt to each person, you know. And the discussion here has to do with substances, so we need to adapt to the needs of each person and the substance and the physical situation. Uh, and sorry, so that's how you do a screening, you get to know the person, you get to understand a little bit more about. We ask for the tests, of course, and then when we understand the situation, we can define, okay, this person might need not just the a regular process is 8 days, but many of these people, like coming off of opiates or 7-OH or fentanyl or buprenorphine or methadone or alcohol or cocaine, need more time. So we can adapt to that. We can offer a process that offers a previous week or two or even three if necessary for some cases, because we are a small operation, and then doing maybe a switch to short-acting opiates, or just helping them getting healthier and detox maybe off of alcohol, and helping them improve their health and get stronger for the experience. And then the last 8 days, we start working with the medicine.
So, for people who are new to ibogaine, I just want to make a side note here, Felipe, before we go on to talking about the substances in particular. And I also would love to introduce Barry to the group here if Barry is willing. But I just want to say that so ibogaine have the people who have been working with ibogaine for a long time have had to take many risks and many challenges to get to the point of functionality because there has been no medical oversight, the legality or the illegality of it, the international borders. I mean, there are so many, plus the difficulties of the medicine itself. So they have learned through trial and error how to do this correctly. All the way from Howard Lotsof, who discovered that ibogaine interrupted his heroin addiction in 1962, and he spent the rest of his life trying to change the laws about it and also offering it to people. And so this is what happens. You come to this place where you realize that this medicine is a lifesaver on so many levels, and you want to offer it to other people because it has helped you so much. And then what happens is you have to deal with the socio-political structure inside which you have to do it. So just want to say that so I have a lot of respect for people like Barry and Felipe and um, many of the people who've joined the Awake community as providers, because the hard work of discovering how to do it and how to do it correctly, and how to, because there's also cardiac risk to it. So can you talk a little bit about the EKG part and the blood panels and the cardiac risk before we move on?
Well, it's basically about learning what the condition of the heart is in general. Of course, learning about the QTC, which is the full electric cycle of the heart, and there are some values that need to be really seen, and understood. Like if there is any arrhythmias, if there is any other condition in the heart, and you can really never understand it fully. Like there might be other things that appear, but you can see these values and start from there, and have the medical supervision and uh, paramedics on site, and do everything you can to make it as safe as you can. And of course, all the other tests are to understand the conditions, the liver, the health in general, you know. And these are things that need to be addressed. I mean, if someone is not doing this, I think it's super super risky, and you're putting a lot of people in danger and yourselves too. Um, but that now that you mentioned that, I probably would like to talk more about what these like the idea, the challenges of doing this. Yes, of course, is you need a good medical screening and understanding the situation at a physical level, and the drugs involved, which is a changing world, and there's many drugs right now in the market that we really don't understand what how can they affect in long or short term, super powerful opioids, all kinds of things, and we need to adapt that to a world that is um, changing all the time, and substances are getting stronger and stronger, and it's a crazy world. So we really need to be careful with all this new perspective on the world, these new substances, and all the affections that they have in the people. But one of the other things that is immensely a conflict is that a lot of people arrive to these processes thinking that something magical can happen, and all of a sudden addiction can go away, or that my PTSD is going to go away, and they arrive to a place of treatment, of going really deep in, and like getting to know themselves better and opening up, and with this idea of yes, there's going to be a magical process that takes the problems away. And this is and I went back to this because when I told you my experiences with the grief with my mom and my father, yes, these are things that can happen, and that the gifts of Ibogaine. But still, in the process of working with addiction, there is so much more that needs to be looked, addressed, like in the process of integration, or the process of rebuilding integrity into your life. And that is one of the biggest challenges, I mean, if we go back to the physical, yes, all these new substances are a new world, and we need to be very careful. There's some substances that we wouldn't treat, um, or only with enough time and good medical supervision, but it becomes really difficult to treat someone off of, let's say, long-acting opiates, sorry, because they really need to get off of them for a long period, maybe 8 weeks, maybe 12 weeks. And for people to do it on their own in their homes is most of the times, 95% of the times, impossible.
Is it
Um,
is it possible for someone to go to a regular detox facility, the cold turkey detox, and then come to an ibogaine treatment?
well, to do a cold turkey detox, I mean, you need people that is committed to the process and willing to go through a lot of discomfort. But the problem with going to detoxes, especially in the US, is that they will immediately offer long-acting opioids like buprenorphine is huge in the US, or methadone, and those are even harder to detox of with ibogaine because you need longer processes and they are very sticky. And they'll probably offer you also antidepressants of many different kinds and anxiolytics. And yeah, I mean, going to a detox in the US, I mean, in all these years working, I haven't seen one detox in the US that doesn't offer this. There are alternative ones, but
I've seen two places that do it, and I'm wondering if now that ibogaine has, become more acceptable, because in the US, that detox facilities might not be willing to do a detox without, substituting medication with something else because that's what you need. So we have had two people who've gone through feet who did that. One of them, his hope of doing ibogaine, because he had this hope of doing ibogaine, the detox worked. Like in the past, he had gone 10 times and the detox hadn't worked. And then this time the detox worked and he was able to get off of opiates without doing ibogaine, just because of the hope of doing ibogaine. So anyway, I just want to put out there that that situation might be evolving. So if there are people interested in using that, look for a detox center that won't give you a substitute, or ask them to speak to whoever the provider is doing ibogaine for you. You know, um,
yeah, that's amazing. I'm sure they're well. Thank you for sharing this. I'm sure there's places that can do a good work, but there's also other challenges. Like for example, if you go to a week-long detox, and you're trying to get off of Suboxone or methadone or fentanyl, you need longer periods of staying off of the Suboxone, methadone, and fentanyl to be able to do ibogaine safely. So you would have to be in a detox regulating for not just a week. Longer periods are needed. You know, there's people that have been using Suboxone for, let's say, 5, 8 years, 10 more at, at high doses or regular doses. So your body gets impregnated with it, and it's really hard for it to go out of your system and do a safe treatment. There is people doing it, but I mean it's crazy, and you're putting your the participant at risk and yourself too. So yeah, it's complex. It's complex to do to accept someone to do a buprenorphine or methadone or fentanyl detox has a lot of complications. Has a lot of complications because usually, if you've been using for a long time, you need at least 8 weeks, at least, and this depends on the dosage, on the physical situation of the participant, um, and it needs long periods. And in my experience, very few people are able to do it on their own, even with short-acting opiates, which makes it much easier. You know, it has its challenges. Um,
so there's a question there. I think you answered the first one about how long the detox process lasts, 8 weeks. And then the other question from Alina is, when exactly do they get put on other opiates such as morphine, and for how long?
there's a bunch of opiates that you can use, and opioids also. It's just that you need to find those that are not long acting. You know, we usually you can work with morphine, you can work with oxycodone. They are very effective. But also, for example, to match tolerance with a fentanyl user, if you were to use morphine, that you use it right away. You know, you need to stop the substance, or you can taper down a little bit and start administering opiates, let's say oxys in the case of fentanyl, which is what we usually have to do. And then at some point, like stop the fentanyl. And usually, fentanyl, buprenorphine, and methadone have a like when you stop the any of these three opioids and do the full switch, it might take some days to regulate. They might feel uncomfortable. It might be that you cannot match the tolerance. We've had people coming off of fentanyl that have tolerance that is just incredible. You know, I lived in a world where heroin was available, and I mean, when I see the quantities someone getting off of fentanyl can use, it's amazing. And of course, we need to respect some safety safety protocols. So sometimes we cannot match their tolerance, and they do have to go through some discomfort. So people need to understand that if you want to get detox off of fentanyl, this may happen, and you'd have to be
Not a
uncomfortable for a
fix,
while.
like you're saying. It's not a quick fix, and this is a really important point that um, people are coming to Ibogaine, especially now because there's been all this talk about it, expecting it to be like a magic bullet which just fixes you, just like the addictions fix you in a certain way. But that's not what Ibogaine is. It's not a quick fix. You're going to go through some detox before and after sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very different. You know, the other day when we were talking, Lakshmi, when you mentioned yes, the work we do, addiction interruption is almost is the same than working with psychospiritual or with whomever, with whatever, with trauma. And yes, at an elemental, at a basic level, it is. You know, we all as humans have the same needs of being seen, of being loved, of all these things, and the work is basically the same. But when you have someone that has been using substances for so long and their reward system has to do with substances, and they've used many different things that alter the brain and the physical elements. You are working with a different thing, you know, because you need to have consideration for all these physical and chemical aspects. So yeah, at an elemental basic, at a basic level, the deep work, the emotional work, the energetic work is basically the same. But if you're working with addicts, you need to have consideration and really address a whole bunch of other things, you know.
Right. Physiology and
Mm-hmm.
biochemistry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh, here's some more. Yeah, exactly. Alina says it's a space for the work to happen. Rory, you have something to add? Of course. Come on, let me just make you unmute. And hi, Rory.
Hi, Lakshmi. Thank you. Thank you, Felipe, for
Yeah, really.
hi. Yeah, I just wanted to add that my experience, well, I had been on methadone for over 8 years when I was introduced to the idea of Ibogaine. And because of I searched for doctors locally. I'm in New England in USA. So I searched for doctors, and every doctor I talked to said because of the Data 2000 Act, that it's forbidden for doctors to prescribe short-acting opiates in the United States, except for Suboxone. That's why methadone, when I was on it, I had to go to a clinic every single morning for basically 8 years to get it. But while I was on the methadone, I was still using heroin. Actually, now it's fentanyl because it was fentanyl because that's the only thing we could get up here. So I had to go to a doctor in Canada who was willing to prescribe me short-acting opiates. So I took my last dose of methadone, went to his office. He prescribed me short-acting opiates for about 31 days until the methadone was out of my system. I actually went to the Ibogaine Treatment Center in Mexico. They made me pee in a cup and they said it's still in your system after about, I think it was 30 days. So I couldn't take the Ibogaine yet. So I had to wait a couple more days while they continued me on the short acting opiates in Mexico at the clinic I went to. And then I kept peeing in a cup for a couple of days. Eventually, it was clean. There was no methadone in my system. Then they could induct me into then they could give me the Ibogaine treatment. And I just want to add that was 2 years ago now. And I mean, my life is so different than it was.
Yeah.
I was shooting drugs, smoking crack, shooting crack, just doing. I was the worst of the worst when it came to it, as I imagine you can relate to that, Felipe. So yeah, thank you for letting me just add that in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it's really terrible that you. It's really difficult for addicts. There's so many people in Suboxone and methadone and fentanyl that could benefit so much from short-acting opiates. They are not able to get them, but there are new options. Like, for example, I've been working with some people with a substance called SR17, 0018, something like that. That is not regulated in the US. You can have easy access. There's a lot of people working with it. And it gives amazing results, but it has its own challenges. Like you cannot use it for more than 21 days because it becomes more sticky and then the process, and it's a new substance. So we don't really know how it works in terms of the interaction with the ibogaine. So for me, like, and also supervising a process from here in Mexico of someone who's doing it in the US is very difficult. I mean, we humans, we need support, and doing these processes alone, man, I've seen some really sad stories, and it's very difficult for an addict, a chronic addict, to do a process like this on its own. So this is why, for me,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I I I love that you said that. Again, I just want to add just a little more context. I didn't have a clinic to do this to switch from methadone to short acting. I had to get an apartment, an Airbnb in Montreal. Actually, luckily my girlfriend was with me the entire time, and the doctor was so understanding. I think probably because he had an understanding of Ibogaine too. I don't know. He didn't. He doesn't treat with that, but yeah, having like a safe environment where I can like switch from one to the other because as you mentioned, these long-acting opiates, the sticky opiates like methadone and fentanyl, because I had been doing them so regularly, when they switched me to a long-acting morphine and Dilaudid. So they thought the combination of those two opiates, they're both short-acting. It's a long-acting morphine, but morphine's a short-acting drug. So those two combination together, they thought would keep my tolerance or my physical dependency at bay, which like it did like 85 to 90%, but it wasn't the full feeling I was getting from the methadone. Anyway, I don't want to take up too much. I do want to just say that if you'll allow me, that I wrote this book called Awakening the Heart, and it details my experience. Kind of like I got into a car accident when I was 18 and I was put on Dilaudid opiates that were way too strong. And then this just kind of goes through my experience of using drugs for 10 years to being introduced to Ibogaine and my life kind of since then. So I just wanted to like, I'm not trying to plug it, but I just want to say that like I think this is a good I just wanted to add that in. So
yeah.
thank you,
Thank
Felipe,
you.
and thank you,
Thanks, thanks,
Lakshmi.
thanks, Rory. And if you put that book up on Awake, if you join and put it up there, it'll
Okay,
people will be able to get a hold of it.
I love that. Thank you so much, and thank you for letting me share.
Thank you,
It's
Rory, for
on Amazon.
sharing.
It's on Amazon, I'm sure. Is it on
Yeah,
Amazon?
I will. It is, but
You
right
can
now it's
link
on.
it here if you want.
Sure, I will do that. It's on pre-order. It's going to be released June 1st. So the pre-order on Amazon is only ebook, so it's not like the physical copy. But I'm going to put the link in here. And thank you so much. And um, yeah, I think I have a lot more to say if it makes sense. But I love
You can
that
come
you're
back
here.
on after we finish talking about some of the
Awesome.
sequences. I think we'll have time. So yeah,
Thank you.
sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
So Felipe, can you talk a little bit about the challenges of working with um, fentanyl Um, Kratom, I know that Barry has said many times that people are coming with very complex versions of Kratom, so maybe Kratom is a good one to talk about first.
Yeah, well, Kratom also it works in various opiate receptors, so it acts like an opiate, but it also has an effect on the serotonin. So it's different, and with all the, for example, the 7-OH, now the MGM, which is being called the fentanyl of Kratom, which we haven't treated anyone off of that, but it's really scary. But with 7-OH, which is kind of the hardest one to treat, um, you really need to make sure that the 7-OH is all out of the system, and that people getting off of it have a good understanding. Of course, as a regular process, that you need to understand as an addict that you're going to need support. What kind of net of support are you going to have when you go back home? But in terms of the detox specifically, you might looking to have some post acute withdrawal symptoms and some serotonin imbalance, which can be addressed. We've been seeing with our doctor what are the options to do this, but it's tricky because it is very sticky, and people is using it in huge amounts because it's so widely available. So you really need to understand how much are they using, for how long, what is their history, all their physiology, if they are healthy, um, all their story, emotionally, mentally, how are they? And then, for example, we treating someone off of 7-OH, you can do, if you switch to Kratom leaf, it's easier to treat than just the 7-OH. So there's various ways to come to Ibogaine if you're using 7-OH, for example. You can switch to SAOs, you can switch to Kratom, and then switch to SAOs with all the necessary monitoring and the studies, the lab tests, and everything. Um, so yeah, there's ways to do it, but some people would need to stay off of the 7-OH, for example, for maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And there are ways to do this, but it's difficult. It's difficult. One of the things Rory was saying, like it's impossible to, not impossible, but we don't do it. Like getting someone a prescription for SAOs or sending SAOs to the US is really hard. If they were here in Mexico, we can work with them, but and at some point you do need to do the switch to short acting opiates like morphine or oxys, or there's many you could use. But yeah, it is a challenge because I wouldn't know how biochemically to explain it, but with kratom comes what we usually see is it can detonate depression really strongly.
Mm.
And with any opiate or opiate-like substance, sometimes the one of the difficult parts is to stabilize them after the ibogaine experience. The sleep cycle might be hard to rebuild, and there are other things that you need to be aware. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, also, for example, with kratom, you need to be uh, supervising or seeing that the person does not go into depression. And if they go into depression, there are other uh, professionals that can work with other medications that can be safely used to help them with that.
Like SSRIs or something else?
Like, for example, mitragynine has shown to be good, but we don't do that process. We don't supervise that process. That needs to be with another medic. We can give suggestions, but yeah, we haven't had anyone doing it with us, you know. So yeah, I don't want to talk much about things that we don't do.
Got it.
But yeah, that's another option.
So
But yeah,
can you clarify? Can you clarify when you say uh, it might detonate depression? Is that going on when someone is making the switch from 7-OH to kratom leaf, or from kratom leaf to short acting? Is it happening while when they're doing it on their own before coming to the clinic? I just want to understand at what stage is is that potentially happening?
and this is experiential, but yes, a lot of people using kratom tend to go into depression. You know, of course with opiates too, but with kratom we see uh, some. Yeah, our sense is that it does detonate depression, and also in the coming off, the switch usually looks good, you know, when you're able to match the tolerance and they can stabilize with oxys or morphine or whatever it is. Um, that it looks good in the process. You don't see, unless they already have a deep depression, and you don't see that the switch can cause that much effect. But then when you do it, there's something when you do ibogaine. Sometimes it can really leave you in a very good place, and reconnected and feeling good. But it can also bring a lot of the material that is moving inside, you know, and a lot of these mechanisms of addiction and the reward system. There might be a lot of things coming out after an ibogaine experience, and with kratom, we do see that depression could be one of them. Um,
So
and
does knowing that that's going to happen, like, if as a person going through preparing to go, if you know that you might get depressed, does that help in any way to like say, okay, I might fall into a deep depression, but I know I'm going to come out on the other side of it? Does that help? Is that what happens? Just curious, because it seems like um, that's a part of the preparation, is to know what you're going to go through,
yes,
right?
totally, totally. You need to go through all these things. You know, usually, and this is true. I mean, usually what we see is amazing processes of reconnection and feeling good. You know, people can arrive here like this. You know, their side to the ground and their energy somewhere else, and then after the process, they look into your eyes and they look shiny, and it can be amazing. But you have to go through all these things for them to understand. You know, you need to be as clear, honest, and direct as you can. You know, I mean, it's important for them to understand. Okay, the process might look like this. We might have to administer the ibogaine in this way or that way,
Yeah.
and yeah, you have to go through this before they come, of course. Before they even make the commitment to come, you need to explain all these parts of the process and how it may look. And you have to tell them, well, you know, for some cases it's really difficult in this aspect and this aspect and this aspect, and pause might appear. Pause, pause symptoms. I mean, they can be hard sometimes. So you really need to go through this with them and tell them, okay, this might happen, but remember you are mostly in a different place and you're gonna need the support. So we stay in touch with them, um, and see if they need anything else.
Right.
Hmm.
Any questions? Hi, Amanda. Well,
Hello.
hi. Um, so, can you talk about Suboxone and methadone? Because many people, I've heard that Suboxone is one of the hardest addictions to get over, and it has some really dark long-term effects. Um, do you work with people going through Suboxone?
Yeah, I see that. Sorry, that the you mentioned the 7-OH kratom switch to kratom leaf makes it easier. Yes, it makes it easier, but just remember you do need to switch them to a short-acting opiate like morphine before doing any ibogaine. Doing kratom and immediately after ibogaine is not, no, it doesn't. It's not a good idea. It can complicate things. and also with the serotonin levels, it might be trickier. But with Suboxone and methadone, it's very sad, the situation with Suboxone and methadone, because I talk to a lot of people that really want to get off of those, and it's really hard because it really needs a much longer period than a regular detox, and they don't have the support. They don't have the medical means to get short-acting opiates. They don't have a good support at home to do a process this long and this complex. So they don't. It's hard for someone to find someone that does have the the means, the ways to do it. Because there are many factors. And yeah, let's say you have someone that's been using Suboxone or methadone for over a year, or more. There's people that I talk to that have been using it for 10 years at high doses, and they already lost sense of of life, and there are many things that happen, and it's tricky, the process, because you cannot get them the SAOs. It's very difficult for them to get them. There are options, they could switch to something else. But for example, it'd be very difficult to switch them to Kratom because matching the tolerance is a different thing. So it's not the best idea. There are ways to do it. I wouldn't like to get that much into that. But the way we prefer to do it is like really supervise the process, depending on how much they're using and for how long and their physiological conditions. That's how we determine the time they need to be off of it. It could be maybe the shortest we've worked with that we've seen effective is 6 weeks, and we like to keep it on the safe side. But yeah, most of these people hooked on Suboxone or methadone for many years, it's very very difficult to get them down here and do a good and safe process with Ibogaine. So it's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Um, what about alcohol?
Mm. Well, with alcohol, you can do the process. If this is a chronic addict that can't stop drinking, we would like to have them here 5 days prior to the session, or depending on the case, maybe 3 days prior to the session. Of course, we need to assess, see how the liver is, how the heart, and the general health condition is, and from there we can propose the times, and yes, we can do first you need to do a medical detox of alcohol, stabilize them, getting them strong with carcilasa, some B vitamins, a bunch of supplements, hydration, and then when you see they are stable, you can work. They can work with the medicine.
So I think this brings up an important point is readiness for ibogaine. Not everyone, it depends on what stage of addiction you are and how willing you are to, how ready you are to actually go through the treatment, because it takes energy to go through it. But also, like, for example, somebody who's blacking out with alcohol and is in the hospital, etc., is not ready for ibogaine. They have to get much better physically, right? And I think this is probably true for other things too, like fentanyl and meth and other things. Can you speak a little bit to that? That what does readiness for ibogaine look like in either in gen? Yeah, if that's an answerable question for you.
What is readiness for Ibogaine? That's a really good question. Um, well, I can say that one of the really complicated things is that most of the people looking to do Ibogaine treatment nowadays want a quick fix. They have a bunch of expectations about the treatment getting rid of the problem, and they want to do it fast, and they are not willing to go through everything that the Ibogaine throws you in. And this is very difficult in the sense that even if you're in touch with someone for a month or 2 months, explaining this is very difficult when most of the propaganda for Ibogaine is done saying, "Oh, it has an 80 or 90% of effectiveness with addiction or with PTSD." This is subjective. This is very subjective, and also, if you get with all these expectations of something else doing the work for you. I mean, not ibogaine, not there's nothing in this world that is going to do the work for you. So that is very, very, very difficult. You can talk to someone and tell them, listen, there's much more than just a detox, and there's much more uh, for you to work. This is why it's so important to get to know them and
Mm.
understand the situation really well and try to to share and for them to absorb this, that you're coming here to do a very deep work, and whatever it might bring, there's a lot to be done. We're gonna be here for you. And in this sense, for example, for me, having an ibogaine experience can be very abstract in a way for many people, and also the integration process, with a lot of people just wanting a quick fix, or with people that is committed to do the work, the integration may seem, I like to think of the spiritual work as a more grounded work than just, an ethereal thing that happens, and energy and this and that. So for me, the integration process is fundamental, because someone can arrive here and have expectations and thinking that the medicine is going to do most of the work or all the work, and then the integration process is where they are people is more sensitive, open most of the times, and you can start working. Okay, spirituality is, learning to be honest with yourself, with others, learning, rebuilding integrity. Make your thoughts match your words and your actions. So it may seem like a very abstract thing, but you are super open, and the grounding process, for me, if you start working with these actions, these also concepts that put it more clear, the integration process can bring a lot to the whole detox, because a lot of people wanting to detox, or with addiction problems, or with any problem, um, it's very difficult to see all the things that need to be there. And it might bring other things like personal things, bonds with your family, and then you can work with that. But if you have a line of work, where you bring people you help people ground to this being more honest, and integrity and dignity, and it's a very beautiful way of doing it, and more simple in a way.
Yeah, I just want to share here that we've created a. Sorry, I have to turn this off. I just want to share here that we've created a program on Awake called Change Your Character, and it's a 9-month long-term integration course. And it's a part of the FEED program. We call it the FEED Journey of Rebirth. And we're working with clinics like Iboga Quest and Inner Realms and a few others. And we're bookending the clinical treatment with the long-term integration and aftercare. And we also have a preparation process, although many clinics have their own preparation process. But this is what we're creating on Awake, and this is part of the reason we're having these conversations, so that people understand that this is the whole process that you need. You need preparation, you need short-acting detox, you need the clinical treatment, and then aftercare is very important, and then the long-term integration is where you're doing the work. So we've created a community, and we've created a structure inside of which this can happen. So you can check it out on awake.net.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. We are in so much need of aftercare processes and integration processes. What I've also seen is that, for example, The Ibogaine, yes, might reconnect you and leave you in this amazing place. It might not. But in any case, what I've seen a lot in my process of doing Ibogaine and going to aftercare places, not mostly for my personal work, not for addiction interruption. When you do the aftercare process, a lot of these mechanisms get, in a way, accentuated. They can get more intense, and then all these mechanisms, the reward system, all these wounds, because you're super open. The next weeks after Ibogaine, you are fully open, and it's so for some, it's hard to sustain, to bear, and it's super important to have some good support in that time. And it's crazy how a lot of people go through some very dark, not dark, but when all these mechanisms get accentuated, it's difficult, it's complicated, and sometimes you're not seeing it. You need outside perspectives. um
Ways to release. You need ways to release energy, release, things that come up, and understand how to do that, right? So you need different kinds of support. And also going back to your own old environment, if you go back home to the same pattern that you were in, and you've just gone through this big transformational experience, um, it's hard because it's easy to fall back into those patterns if you don't have a plan of how you're going to change things or what has to change. You know, after addiction, if you're living with people who are still using, that could be very hard, right?
mhm. Yeah, it's a complex process, and it's impossible. That word of what readiness for an ibogaine experience is, I guess the basic element for that is willing to do the work, to do a deep dive, and then to do the integration process. It's like a beginning, it's a reborn process.
Right.
So I guess the readiness has to do with the elements of commitment and willingness to do the process, and openness. Most of in the work we do, what I see that is most sometimes very, very conflicting is a lot of people come in and all the expectations, and they try to control the experience because they want to see a lot of visions, or they want to be administered the doses like they think it should be, or they should be treated this way, and they spend the experience trying to receive what they were expecting. And in most cases it brings something different, and it can take a while for them to understand, okay, it was expectations, and I was trying to control the experience. And so working with this from the beginning is difficult. It's difficult to make them understand, okay, just come here with curiosity and openness, and whatever it brings, we can help ground and integrate. But
Right.
yeah, a lot of people in this modern world, we tend to want to control things, and that is something that we see a lot.
Right. Also, it seems like the willingness to go through discomfort, because you're going to go through some psychological and physical and maybe spiritual. You're going to go through discomfort in the process of healing, because if you've been using for a long time, or even if you have been suppressing things, you've been suppressing things, and so when you stop doing the addiction, those things that you suppressed are going to start surfacing, and triggers will go off. And so the expectation, to set the expectations right, that you're not going to be, it's not all like, oh, I went through this big aha experience and now I'm completely fine. Even if you go through an aha experience, you're going to have to go through some potentially discomfort of changing things about yourself.
Hmm,
So um
definitely.
so I'd love to invite Barry to come on and
Yes,
say hello
please.
if he's still here.
Oh, I don't see him.
Yeah, he might have. Okay, I guess he's gone off for a second. So Juan,
Oh,
Juan,
man, yes, one
would
is
you
here.
like to introduce yourself? I see you said something here on in the comments. Well, that's a really nice comment. Um, so this intuitive ability that you're talking about here um, is really important, right? It's an intuitive art, like working with people, understanding who they are, what they need, etc.
Yeah, you know, the medicine also tells you a lot. I mean, I remember when Rocky Carabelli, who's also been one of my mentors, and Asha, he has everybody has their own way of approaching the work with the medicine, but everybody deep into the work has an understanding that the medicine is a leader. You need to adapt to what you see with the medicine, no, and the person. Um, so yeah, you do create this intuition, you know, and you do learn different stages of the process. It might be different for a lot of people what they go through, but in a general way, you know, when you work with this medicine for a while, you kind of get to understand where they are, and the medicine tells you a lot, you know, even from when you are administering the medicine. You know, you might might be medical reasons why you need to wait, or you can administer more at once. But it's also a sensitivity, and people might need more or might go back into withdrawal. Or yeah, there's many things, but it's amazing how the medicine, you know, when the medicine feels you are working with her, uh, the medicine is happy to have you there also, and it might ask you, please help me go to more people, you know. That's been one of my experiences, and I think I've been very fortunate and blessed with this medicine in my life, you know.
Totally, totally. Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that working with this route, that if when you, it seems to um, it seems to move you forward in your life purpose in a very unexplainable way. You know, you find yourself doing things and doing these things that you didn't necessarily plan to do, but they seem right, and then you move, and then it opens up again. I don't know if you experience it that way. Just the way you move through life changes after you do Ibogaine.
Yeah, yeah, and also the things to work in life change, perspective change, a lot of changes. Like I worked through things with my family, my parents, let's say, just one example, in many different ways in different stages of my life. You know, maybe my first with the medicine brought me to the forgiveness and the work with the grief, and accepting my mother inside of me. But now, when I've done Ibogaine in the these last years, I've worked with different aspects of my relationship with my parents, for example, and it keeps on giving. You know, it's something that never ends. There's always material to work with, and the Ibogaine is just is so it's like varies. It shares and shares and gives, and yeah, it's amazing. So Barry cannot. I think Barry is there, and Juan too.
Oh, he is, but it doesn't seem like Barry. Can you talk? I don't know if you can unmute. Um, you're you're muted, Barry, so we can't hear you. I guess not.
No, his computer is glitching.
I see.
Maybe Juan would like. Maybe you like to ask something to Juan, who's the one of our doctors, and he supervises all the process of switching to short-acting opiates, and he's really developed an amazing process, and it's an integral part of Iboga Quest. And
Oh, great. Let me see if I can bring Juan on. Hi, Juan.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
hello, mi Juan.
Hello, brother.
Yeah.
Yes, well, as Felipe was saying, and I was saying in my message, I think that, yeah, what I've learned a lot is, of course, I've learned all these protocols or this idea, but the protocols are just blueprints. At the end, I think the assessment and the intuition that Felipe puts into the process and has taught me how to do it is what really makes the difference for the patients, because um, every situation is unique. Everybody is unique, and we're treating persons. We're not treating diagnosis. So that really is a way, I think, to go, not just in switching people, but in general in medicine. Yeah. So I don't know if you have any questions, Lakshmi.
Oh, well, Juan, can you just introduce yourself? Tell us what you do at Iboga, just what you do and how you came to the medicine.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm a medical doctor. I always liked alternative medicine, and then I went into a therapeutic world. And while I was coming back into this path after being in a very neurotic family situation for years, um, I was asked to come and bring some somatic experiencing, which is one of my practices, to Iboga Quest, and that's when I met all this team, and then I got the opportunity to experience Ibogaine from Barry. And since the first moment in my encounter with the medicine, I just knew that I had found what I was looking for through my life. It was like a great encounter. It was something that was really powerful for me. So then I got, at that moment, I was like, I remember being with the medicine and saying, okay, now you have me, I'm committed to you, and I will be working for you in any way you show me how. And after the experience, I saw Barry, and I couldn't believe how much gratitude I was feeling in my body. And then I told him, well, if you allow me, I will be on your service as a, yeah, at that time, I was not expecting a job opportunity. I was just looking to come as a, how you say, um,
Serve the medicine.
Volunteer?
yeah, so a volunteer. I
Yeah.
was volunteering, but then I was like, I start finding my way into the team. So I've been working there for I think more than 4 years now. And and my experience in the beginning, I didn't know where exactly I should put myself, because as a medical doctor and a therapist, it's a complicated place to have both. But also, I wasn't like a clinical practitioner, so my knowledge was not in the day-to-day basis things about medicine. So, but I've been finding my path, and right now what I'm doing is like I'm taking care of most of the pre-care, the stabilization, the switching with Felipe's mentorship and help, and also providing people with short-acting opiates. And my experience during the last 4 years has been very, yeah. I mean, not all the cases have been successful cases. And of course, some of them still have a lot of challenges to deal with in life. But I think that we've come to a point in which the experience, the assessment, and the ideas are making things. I don't want to say smooth, because there's never smoothness, but at least from our side, there's some level of confidence of what we're doing and how to manage it. And I think it's, yeah, that's what we're doing. And I'm also during the session with the participants. Sometimes I take care of some follow-ups. Um, and my experience has been basically like, I am always I feel a lot of gratitude and joy in being a witness of this transformational process that I keep seeing every month. And so I feel very, yeah, I feel very, I feel a lot of gratitude for Barry's mentorship, Felipe's mentorship, and the whole team that we've built with Cecile, Ninka, Jimena, and Chris, because I feel like we finally got together into a great container. And that's another really important aspect of what we do. Like, I think we have many levels of container. Of course, we have a medical container, which takes care of all the medical, but that can be very cold at times and it's impersonal. But then we have another level of container, which is this compassionate, case by case view in the people that are coming for addiction or anything else. And then we have another level of container, which is more therapeutic, psychological container. And then we have and that's more like a clinical psychology. And then we have another level of container, which is more like Gestalt therapy and somatic therapy, which is more like a relationship based and present and being present with them. And then we have like a more compassionate, humanized container of sitting at the end. And I think all those levels of container really makes a difference in the way that like how we do things in comparison to other providers or other types of medicine or work. So yeah, that's what I do.
Mm. I'd like to add something.
Yes.
With Juan, we developed this. I mean, if it wasn't for Juan, we wouldn't be able to do this part of the process where we can have people for the previous process of Ibogaine and doing the switch, doing the detox, doing the therapeutic supervision, these parts of the container where the big part of the work is to feel connected to the people, and this very loving part also as an MD with all the medications and understanding of the detox processes, like what Juan does, really gives Iboga Quest a different feeling and a different capacity, than what Iboga had in the early years. So Iboga Quest, I mean. So thank you, Juan. It's really great to work with you, brother.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think that like how it works, Lakshmi's and everybody in hearing this is that they come here to my house. I have 4 bedrooms and with each one with its own bathroom and everything. So they're here as guests. They're not here as patients. It's not a clinic. They're here as guests. And that's also part of our screening process is people that are able to come here as guests and not as a different type of container of like a clinic that needs to be closed door. We're in an open door facility. Of course, we ask them to sign a consent form, but and we ask them not to leave the premises without letting us know. But there's an openness and I think that also it's a different approach from people that are coming down from alcohol or from opiates or any other drugs. So it's they surrender their capacity to auto-medicate and they will give that to us because we're the ones we're going to be in charge of their comfort and their well-being. But those are the changes and we make it very clear that that's the only things that we're really taking care of. We don't have sometimes we can make activities to help them like go out or do some therapeutic work or something or massages or something during the process. But they're basically on their own agency of going through the process while happening, but also having a good, having a host and having the food covered.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to be after doing a big journey like that. You just need time to decompress and not have responsibilities and just rest and renewal, right? So important. Like I mean, I have noticed after doing a big journey, I just need time time is what I need. That's the most important element.
Yeah, but what I was saying was that this is usually a pre-care project that we have
Oh, I
ongoing,
see.
and
You're doing.
that's
I see.
we sometimes do a little bit of aftercare, or they want to come back into my house and be a guest for a couple of days and have that time. We can offer that, but in not for a long term because
Oh, I
I don't
see.
have that program. But the program that Felipe is talking about and the program that we're more focused on right now is that pre-care of stabilization. And it can be sometimes people coming off opiates, but also coming off sometimes yeah, antidepressants or other things, benzos, like helping in them taper off the last part of them can be challenging for some people, and having a good place or good container is also very beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I love the container metaphor. It makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you guys have a great program. Really sounds good the way you're approaching it. Um, so, does anybody have any questions? Okay. Well, we have half an hour still, and Rory, if unless you want to talk about something else, I'll invite Rory to share his experience. Oh, yeah, there he is. Yeah, let me just bring you on.
Yeah. Bye.
Well, you want me to take you
All right.
off? Okay, I will do that. Okay. So before I do that, um, can you um, can you put your so you can find Iboga Quest. I let me just can you just put your URLs and how someone can find you on here in the chat? Somebody from Iboga Quest. Thank you so much. Um, and okay, here we go. Okay, hi Rory.
Hi.
Can you? Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Ni- Thank you.
So, would you like to share a little bit about your journey and your book?
For sure. Thank you for having me. I think there was a lot. I mean, I don't have much to add in the fact that I think Felipe covered like so much, and I think that's amazing. I do have some relational things like experiences. For example, when Felipe said that some people kind of show up expecting, well, let me just backtrack. Let me start by saying, I abused hard drugs for well, I was on methadone and was abusing heroin and fentanyl for 8 years and other stuff too. So when I showed up to get my Ibogaine treatment, I looked like a complete mess. I mean, there's a picture of me. They take a picture of me, and I was like 40 pounds heavier, and just it was as if I was sleeping. I was kind of dead in the eyes. And um, I noticed someone in the comments said, "You look healthy, Rory," and I mean, that means the world to me because for the longest time I didn't really ever get a compliment like that. So, thank you for that. I wanted to speak on Felipe said that some people kind of show up expecting the Ibogaine to be this miracle treatment, which it genuinely was for me, but in the sense that the patient or like me, I wouldn't have to do any actual work. That's all. That was always my hope when I showed up to rehab. I was like, I'm going to show up to rehab and like hopefully just be cured of this, and never worked. I mean, I had over 10 times I went to a local rehab in America, in the United States, that never helped. But again, so 2 years ago, I went down to Mexico to get treatment, and I'm just going to share this again. So this is the first physical copy, so it's not actually like the physical copies won't be released until June 1st. But I wanted to just read one excerpt from in here that I wrote because I think it speaks to what I was just saying. So I wrote, part of me hoped the experience would resolve something for me without requiring my participation, that it would fix the confrontation I had been avoiding. I didn't yet know how thoroughly that hope would be dismantled. So to speak a little more on that is, I thought I kind of hoped I would show up, take the Ibogaine treatment, and all of my like troubles would go away. And physically, the opiates, that is true. I was not physically dependent afterwards, which is, I think it's the only substance in the world that can actually do that. Because I had been struggling for 10 years, eight, actually, methadone for 8 years, but drugs for over 10 years. And every time I tried to detox, I couldn't. I was never successful. Um, Whereas since the Ibogaine, I haven't, not only have I not had the physical dependency, I also haven't had any of the cravings, which is unbelievable. My entire adult life, I've cravings were at the front of my mind, even when I wasn't s seeking drugs. It was always the number one thing on my mind. And like I said, it's been 2 years since my treatment. I just haven't had cravings. I haven't had really thoughts or compulsions about use. Yeah. And then one other part I wanted to, because I wanted to share just kind of about the experience itself. I think that's really difficult to do with psychedelic experiences in my opinion. It's hard to like detail it, but I tried to, and I can just share that I wrote, when the Ibogaine took hold, it didn't offer me visions or revelations in the way that I expected, but it took things away. First control, then time, then language, then identity, and then the anguish of memories. And then I write, each loss arrived in order as if something methodical was dismantling the structures I'd relied on to explain myself to myself. There was no bargaining with it. So I don't know. I'm just sharing that, but so much is to say that uh, when I showed up, I really didn't. Also, the clinic I went to, and I think this is, I do make a distinction between local rehabs in USA that I went to, or in America that I went to, and then um, the Ibogaine clinic. The staff there was so, they weren't like pushing me. They weren't giving me expectations of what I had to do. Whereas when I'm in rehab here, it's like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. None of the things that they told me to do ever held when I left. So that's such a different experience for me going to a rehab here as opposed to going to the clinic there. Nobody was expecting anything of me. They were like, you're here for yourself. We're here to support you. It was a container. A container is a great word that was used. By Juan. Thank you. Yeah, so I just I don't know. I feel very like energetically charged about this because, and I'm not saying it may or may not work for everyone, but it worked very, very well for me. I was able to complete this book that I like. I couldn't even like formulate the idea of writing a book 2 years ago. Um, and one other thing I'll say about time, because I know time was, I want to just say time, the longer I go from the experience, the more I get from it, which is like a weird experience. I don't get that with like opiates or alcohol. It's like while you're using it, you get the most experience. Whereas this, it's like I had this profound experience, but the longer I go from it, the more I can like, I guess the more revelatory or the more like peace I get from. I think it's twofold. I think it's one, staying away from the hard drugs, but I also think that there is something about the Ibogaine experience that is like a lifelong lasting something to draw on. Um, yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours about it, but I
Mm.
feel like I said, I think Felipe covered like as far as like from my point of view, just watching it, I feel like a lot was covered, and
Rory,
just
can I ask you something? How
sure.
did did you do any kind of aftercare program, or you just went back home and started doing what? What were your tools?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the question. So before I, so okay, so I went to get Ibogaine treatment 2 years ago, but back in the end of 2019, so a little over 6 years ago, I had an ayahuasca experience that changed my life overnight, but it didn't, but it, anyway, so when I talk about like, and I've been to over 200, if not more, AA meetings in my lifetime while I was using NA, different like IOP, intensive outpatient. I've done every type of care. And then none of it really worked until I had the Ibogaine treatment. So your question about what did I did after, honestly, I want to be honest here. I didn't. didn't really like check into too many. I do like a weekly group, and I do check-ins with. I would say, luckily, I have like family. My dad is a doctor, so like, I don't know how much that has to matter, but my parents, I have my parents. They're loving, they're caring, so I can. So I think like part of my story is like community and like having people there. I think that's one of the biggest aftercare treatments for me. And as a, I don't go to like AA or NA. I think those are massively beneficial for in the right setting. But like I also have I started working when I got back. I started working at a nature program, or it's like a nature evolution program, like helping younger adults transitioning from like high school to college. But as far as like, yeah, there's not like too many things that I'm like involved in other than like this weekly group and then checking in with the people that care about me. Yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, I don't have like too many things afterwards that I'm doing, and I think that's unique in the sense that like I don't really feel I need them. I'm not saying I reject them. I think, if there were more things I could be doing, I absolutely would. Um, the reason I personally don't do like AA and NA is because a lot of the people in those settings reject the use of plant medicines.
Or
Um,
they did, or they did. They may not anymore.
right,
You know,
exactly.
yeah. So I just want to make a point here. What you're talking about, Rory, is really important. That not everybody needs all of that support. Some people will can do one thing and they're done. It does happen, and maybe for you, writing the book gave you a focus,
Yes.
and a way to channel all of that.
Yeah, I want to say like part of my aftercare was kind of hermiting myself at home in writing this book, but I would never suggest, like, even in writing my book, I'm not suggesting anybody take any of the path I did. It's simply just a book of like, this is what I did and this is how it helped. Um, I think everybody has a unique path. For me, I think because I write this as well. I didn't go to Mexico looking for insight. I had enough insight to last a lifetime. Like I've been through so many different programs, so many different treatment centers, I've had so much insight. It wasn't until, and then when I had the treatment, it was the first thing that like the Ibogaine treatment is the pinnacle for me of treatment, because it didn't only work on the physiological sense that I didn't need opiates anymore, but it freed me of the psychological chains of wanting to go back to using. And I do think I'm very fortunate in the fact that I pretty much had this one experience, and I don't feel the need for these hard drugs anymore. Also, it's not just that, it's the habits, it's the lifestyle that I was enduring before. I'm complete 180 for me, but again, I could be very unique in that one experience, and I think, yeah, I think integration afterwards is huge. It's not to say I haven't been doing integration. I have. I meet weekly
Yeah,
with.
You
you've
can
had
do
your
it
own
both.
way and experiences, no? Not only the book, the work with this, the high school degrees for these guys, and yeah,
Yeah,
like everybody has their own way, but you've been there for yourself, no?
yes,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
thank you. Yeah, thank you. One other thing is my brother and I know this this is not like a clinical thing but I guess whatever. So we just go out in the woods once a week. This is separate from the other weekly group I do. Every Sunday we'd go out in the woods and we'd just meditate there together, just hold space.
Nice.
That that was hugely transformative in the integration part. And I also want to say my integration, I think, is a lifelong thing. So I've been clean now I've been doing well for 2 years now, but that doesn't mean that I won't, join more groups or join other um, facilitations. Like definitely I'm open to everything. As long as it doesn't mean going back to the drugs, right?
So you
yeah.
have the determination not to go back, and I think that's a big part of the intentionality that you bring. That you're not going to do it. Your will has to be on board. That you're not going to do it again.
Hmm.
that's not on board, no matter what medicine you use, you'll end up going back to using.
And the ironic thing, I know I mentioned this a few times, the rehab that I've been to were always, as soon as I got there were so many expectations put on me, but as soon as I left the door, all of those expectations fell away. Whereas when I go to get the Ibogaine treatment, and I imagine, I don't know, because I can't speak for other clinics, but I imagine most clinics that offer Ibogaine are like this. There's no expectation of you have to do this, you have to do that. It's more like we're offering this. To me, that treatment modality, that switch, and you must do these things to we're offering you something is like uh incomparable
Right.
to most.
Right. Well, it creates it makes you the one who is responsible in the end. It's up to you. It gives you ownership and sovereignty over your process, which is super important.
But sorry guys, but thank you Rory so much for sharing. I love your story, man. It's really beautiful to see when a human can bloom like this. And thank you, man, and thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you for this space. I hope I cover some information. We are open at Iboga Quest for ever any questions you may have, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I think thank you, Rory. That was a great story, inspiring, and look forward to a great title for your book also.
Thank you.
And
And thank you, Felipe, so much. You like this is awesome. I'm really grateful that I was able to join this, and
Great.
even if I wasn't able to share, I'm just glad I'm here. So thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
You too.
yeah, well,
Cheers.
thank you, Felipe, and Juan and Barry, who couldn't come on. Barry is I just love Barry. He's just such a exceptional human being. Thank you, Barry, for everything you do. And Nienke, who is also here, if you want to just come on and say hello since we have 5 minutes. Okay. Um, hmm, it's not allowing me to put you in the spotlight. I don't know what. Oh, I see. You have to go on video before I can put you in the spotlight.
I
Okay.
need to
Well,
go pick up my kid from school, so
yeah, let's just let's
you,
just uh, let's just end the meeting now. Thank you, everyone, and see you next Thursday. We're going to be doing this every Thursday at 11:30 with different people.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you.